Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for those who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of your life. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. So if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that I'm a huge fan of the Myers-Briggs personality type. You can find out which one you are at 16personalities.com. And just in case you're curious, I am an INTP. Finding out which personality type you are is akin to discovering that you were born with an instruction manual that nobody really ever bothered to give you. But in addition to those 16 variants, my good friend Alex Charfen insists that there's a 17th, a personality type that defines the distinctive characteristics found in all entrepreneurs. He calls it the EPT, or Entrepreneurial Personality Type. Well, the bottom line is that we are wired differently than most other people. And today, Alex is going to walk you through the common traits that we share as entrepreneurs and how to modify our environment, our habits, and our routines to maximize our productivity and ultimately create real momentum in our lives and in our businesses. This is an absolutely fantastic episode, and you are going to walk away from this feeling more understood, probably, than you ever have in your entire life. So with that being said, please help me welcome Alex Charfen. Welcome back. Today we are joined with a self-made man alumni, Mr. Alex Charfen, who's also a very good friend of mine here in Austin. So Alex, welcome back to the show, brother.
Mike, it's so good to be here.
Absolutely, man. We've had a few opportunities to play here over the last couple of months and to get caught up, and you're up to some absolutely amazing things. And the discussions that we've had I found to be really, really valuable. So I wanted to get you back on the show to talk about specifically your work around the entrepreneurial personality type. We discussed this a little bit in your first episode here. And today I wanted to expand on that and specifically around some case studies and what you've seen with a lot of your clients, your coaching clients, essentially, or consulting clients, because I've resonated with a lot of these challenges that you've mentioned in my personal business over the last couple of months. So I'm excited to have you back today.
Thanks, Mike, man. It's great to be here. You know, I think after the first appearance, when you and I first recorded, the amount of attention we got, the amount of people that reached out to us was just overwhelming. And I think it's because this audience, the self-made man audience, is just so well curated. There's just the right people here. So I'm excited to be talking to all of you again.
Awesome, brother. So let's just dive in. Let's talk about and just recap, if you will, for all of the new listeners, maybe 2 or 3 minutes of what the entrepreneurial personality type is.
Awesome. So, you know, I'll share what I discovered, because I don't think that this is, or I know that this was never meant to be like marketing content or, you know, something for me to go out and generate leads or anything like that. But here's what it was, Mike. I was writing a book called Constructive Company. And I was writing what I thought was going to be a replacement for Peter Drucker's management. Like, I was going to update that, make it for entrepreneurs. This is how you build a company that gets more valuable over time. And I got to this section of the book proposal, not even the book, but the proposal about where I was supposed to write about my client. And so I went to define entrepreneurs, and I found myself stuck, like no definition fit. And I started searching the internet and looking for, you know, what is the definition? And it just, everything I read felt inadequate, because ever since I was a kid, I've been reading the life stories of successful people. You know, who was it in history we remember? Who was it in history that mattered to be remembered? And the more that I saw those people, the more that I studied them, the more that I understood who they were, the more they looked just like me, Mike. I started reading that stuff because when I was a kid, I was an absolute failure at everything. And I didn't think I would ever even be able to find success. And the more I read about successful people, I found they were just like me, you know, troubled, frustrated. They experienced cognitive dissonance. They didn't really feel like they belonged, and they felt isolated and alone. And when I was writing that book, I started writing that section about your customer, and about 25,000 words came out in a weekend. It was like a lightning strike. And all of the time that I had spent consulting at the Fortune 500, all of the time that I had spent running multi-million-dollar businesses, you know, I've grown 4 past 10, 1 past 250, and it all coalesced in one time. And I discovered that entrepreneurs are our own unique personality type. And we are momentum-based beings that are highly sensitive and reactive to being constrained in any way. And about 4 years ago, I wrote those 25,000 words. They became the book, The Entrepreneurial Personality Type. I've spoken around the world and shared this information. And I've had this overwhelming reaction from people like us where they just say, hey, this is the truth. This all looks like reality. And it's not, it's something that was always there and now we can see. And so the entrepreneurial personality type to me is every person in history like you and I and everyone today who gets up driven to go forward. They don't need external or internal motivation like psychology talks about. They have innate motivation. We can't turn it off. We are driven to make the world a better place. We'll stand up to the vulnerability, the criticism, the condemnation of trying to change the status quo because the rest of the world strives for average. And people like you and I get up every day and say, what can we change? What can we make better? And how do we make the greatest contribution? That's the entrepreneurial personality type.
Yeah. For those of you who haven't heard it, go back and listen to the first episode with Alex. Just go to Google and type in Mike Dillard, Alex Charfen, and it'll come up. But when you first gave this speech, it was at Joe Polish's 25K group. When I first heard it, for the first time, we're in a room with 30 to 40 other very, very successful 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs. And 30 minutes later, everybody's in tears.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, holy shit, I finally feel understood. And so go listen to that episode if you haven't yet. It'll absolutely rock your world. But today we wanted to take this to essentially phase 2, which is once you understand how you maximize your potential and how do you maximize the results that you're going to get in your business and the impact that you can make.
Yeah, I think, Mike, the first part of this is understanding how we're wired. And I want to take us a little bit further on that today, because in the first episode, we talked about some of it, but I want to help everyone, because I think you, like me, and I'm making an assumption, maybe I should ask the question. I have a hard time being around the crowd. Mike, do you know what I'm talking about?
You mean people?
Yeah, like going out in the wild. I love masterminds. The other day when we were at COTA hanging out at the Formula One track, like that kind of day, I enjoy being around those people. But when I have to get out in the wild, we took my kids to a rodeo a couple years ago. I felt so uncomfortable. Do you know that feeling? Yeah, no, absolutely. You feel like you're kind of on an alien planet, and you know that you're not going to be able to have a really meaningful conversation with anybody around you. Yeah, I want to explain that to everybody who's listening, because I want to give everybody the realization that we really are fundamentally different than the rest of the world. And I want to share with you my evolutionary theory on why. Now, when I say evolution, I just want to make sure I'm not trying to offend anybody. Just go forward in history to where people showed up, regardless of how you believe we got here. From that time to today, we have evolved. And when I look at our evolutionary tribe, I see 4 distinct types of people. And when you understand these 4 types of people, it'll show you why, as entrepreneurial personality types, we find ourselves so often uncomfortable, frustrated with, or let's be honest, in conflict with the world. So the first type of person that's out there, and we all know this person, is a person who likes to take care of other people. I call them the caretakers. And they want to help people. They love actually providing this service. Mike, I'll just ask you a simple question so we know if you're a caretaker. Do you enjoy changing bedpans?
That's my daily hobby.
In all candor,
of course not. Yeah.
But you know what? Here's what's interesting. You answered, of course not. But there are people out there I've talked to that when I say, hey, did you enjoy changing that bedpan? Because I ask, they'll say, well, Alex, it was humbling and it made me feel like I was in service and I'm fulfilled. And I think, holy crap, I feel like I should have written a check. Like, that is not me. But those people are out there and our evolutionary tribe needed them. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have friends who, a couple of female friends who are in the nursing field, and that's how, they're wired. They absolutely love it. And it's, how their nature is. So.
No question. And it's hardwired. Like, because I've asked, and you can tell, like, it's genuine. It's real. They actually enjoyed changing the bedpan. People like us can't connect to that feeling. Now, the second big group of people out there, I call them the communicators. Now, the communicators are the ones who like to talk. And it's interesting that a lot of people just assume that guys like you and I are part of this group because we have a podcast, because we speak, because we do masterminds, we help people, we coach. But the fact is, Like, I'll ask you, Mike, do you enjoy small talk?
No. Yeah.
Doesn't small talk always feel like some type of a quiz or a structure or something that you just like you did not get let in on the secret? Because go ahead.
No, it just feels inefficient. It feels like a waste of time.
Right. And it's hard to do. Like I actually, for me, and I'm sure there's people listening, like I actually kind of get sweaty sometimes. I get uncomfortable. Like I don't know what to do because I don't understand the outcome. Right. However, communicators love it. You know a communicator because they walk up and they say, hey, did you see the weather out there? To me, that is such an insignificant conversation. Didn't we already experience the weather? Aren't we here in a controlled environment? Why are we talking about the weather? It's outside. We're now here. But am I wrong, Mike?
No, yeah.
And the fact is, communicators, though, you know, they're the ones that walk up and say, did you see the game last night? And I always think to myself, are you serious? Like, there's so many games in the world. How in hell could I have seen the game? But we needed those people in our evolutionary tribe because guys like you and I weren't going to go around talking. And we needed somebody to say, like, don't go over there. There's a cliff. There's a woolly mammoth in that direction. This thing kills you if you eat it. We needed communicators who were willing to talk constantly about anything.
Yeah, now, absolutely.
So here's the third. I call these the coordinators. And Mike, if we're going to have conflict, you know, we do have conflict with each one of the groups. There's a faction within each one that wants to legislate, regulate, and just push us out of existence. And I'll explain why in a second. But if we're going to conflict, usually we conflict with this third group, the coordinators, the memorizers, the organizers, the people who love fine print. They volunteer for the condo association. They like having, like, you know, being the secretary, being the treasurer, being able to help with the rules, being able to join the committee. And I'll ask you the simple question for this one, Mike. How many committees have you volunteered to be on?
0.
Exactly. Because people like us know that there's a insane level of inefficiency with group decision making, and we don't care about the fine print. We don't care about the rules. In fact, we want to ignore them. You know, here's my coordinator story, the memorizer, the organizer. Like, this is a good story for one. So about a year and a half ago, I tore my bicep tendon, and my bicep ended up in my shoulder. It was horrible. I had to go out to Arizona and have it reattached, and I bought a product called the Game Ready. It's this pump that pumps cold water and pressure around the injury through a sleeve. And so I wore it 24/7 for 60 days because I hate being hurt and I hate recovering. So I will do anything to biohack my way out of it. So I wore the Game Ready. I took some specialized, supplements. I did all kinds of stuff. But I got on an American Airlines flight. I had flown with the Game Ready probably 7 or 8 times. I was walking on the flight with it, putting it under my chair and connecting it to my arm when the stewardess or the flight attendant came up, and she said, "Hey, did you check with the captain on that?" And I said, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." She said, "Well, does that have a battery?" Well, it was running. It either had a battery or it was like nuclear. And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, you have to check with the captain. I don't know if we're going to be able to take off. You may not be able to fly with that." And I said, "I'm in Arizona. I live in Texas. I flew here with it on an American Airlines flight. What do you mean I might not be able to fly with it?" And so she got flustered and frustrated. She left. And then I'm sitting there thinking, like, great, the captain's going to come pull me off the plane because I have a rehab machine. Well, then the flight took off and I'm like, okay, so no issue, right? Like, we're over it. I'm flying. There's nothing she can do now. She's not going to ask me to step out. As soon as the seatbelt light went off, she came charging over to my chair and she was kind of red in her face. And she said, "I just want to show you this." And she turned to like page 99.5 of American Way. You've never seen it. I've never seen it until this day. But it's a page where there's like every rule for being on the plane printed in about like 0.5% or 0.5 point font. It's so tiny, you can barely read it. And she came up and she pointed to a rule that said, like, any external battery must be checked with captain, or any device with an external battery must be checked with captain or something. But so she just had to come show me that I had violated the rules and that she was right.
Right. Yeah. Crazy.
Like, crazy. Right. And I remember sitting there thinking, what's the appropriate reaction to this?
Right.
But that's a typical coordinator. Like, they have to show you the rules, the history, the background. Now, if we look at the evolutionary tribe, did we need coordinators? Dude, you need people to organize things, because guys like you and I would have been so distracted, we wouldn't even notice things like seasons. Winter would have snuck up on us every single year. So we need those people.
Right.
Now, who's left, Mike? What group do you need in the tribe? We've got the caretakers, We have the communicators, the coordinators. Who do you need in the tribe for the tribe to survive?
I'm going to go with leaders.
Yeah, the hunters. Every tribe needs that subsection that's willing to go kill to keep the tribe alive. And when you hear that term, evolutionary hunter, doesn't it for you, just like it does for me, don't you feel that? Because haven't you been on the hunt your entire life? Isn't that what you do every day? You get up, you create the new woolly mammoth, and then you hunt that sucker down.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, and if you're not doing that, you're doing it in a casual way through sports or through video games or through whatever.
Right.
So,
And,
yeah.
it's funny, like you can even see the evolutionary hunter in like 35-year-old women who are like you and I, because this is not a male female thing. Hunters are both. And they're hardwired, because you ask the average woman and you say, hey, how was your kid's birthday party? They'll say something like, it was delightful and we had a great time. There's, this many people there and we really had and then you ask the woman who owns a $4 million company, hey, how was your kid's birthday party? And she says, are you kidding me? We freaking killed it.
Right.
And she thinks that's appropriate. By the way, so do I, because I know exactly what she means. That was a woolly mammoth, a birthday party, because for people like us, that is a stressful event. And she killed it, which means it did not go wrong. But we even communicate that way. And here's the challenge for evolutionary hunters. I want to let everyone listening off the hook. You know that suspicion you've had your whole life that there's people who just work against you for no reason other than the fact that you are you? Well, it's true. Because in each one of these groups, there is a faction of extremists that want to push us out of existence. And here's why. There's a logical reason for this. When you look at the caretakers, the communicators, the coordinators, all three of those personality types live in the present. Those evolutionary personality types obsess over the status quo. Those evolutionary personality types want to be average because it's safe. That's how the tribe survives. And according to the dogma of each one of those groups, when you change things, it goes wrong. And so within each one of them, there are groups who want to just hold us back, constrain us, and keep us in place because we get up every day and say, how do we change things to make it better?
Yeah, without a doubt. That's, it's interesting because every personality type, like you mentioned, is there for a reason from a genetic, standpoint. Nature's biggest insurance policy of continuity is diversity, right? But it's a lack of awareness, right? You and I, and the fact that we're having this call, everybody who's listening to this is now aware of the situation and the benefits and downsides to each of these personality types. But the other groups are not typically aware of that. And we're seeing this play out on a daily basis for the last few years in the political arena, right? You've got the left and the right. They both think the other side is wrong and that the other side needs to go away and die, right? So it's interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah, it's almost as though as humans evolve, as we go further down the road, we become more and more polarizing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think for entrepreneurs, here's what's interesting. You look at people like us throughout history, and regardless of how we started, most of us, there's 3 awakenings of the entrepreneurial personality type, and we covered them in the first podcast, but I'll just do it quick. I want everyone to confirm that you're one of us. I gave you the way to self-qualify with the 4 different types, and if you feel like you're an evolutionary hunter, you probably also, remember when you first figured out you knew you were different. Every EPT I've ever asked knows the age. For me, it was when I first encountered other people. The second qualifier is that you can't turn it off. You have innate motivation. You can't just stop. It's always going regardless of what you try to do. And you don't really understand why people make such a big deal out of trying to turn it off. And then the third one is that you've heard the call of contribution. You have that drive, that motivation, that need to go help people. And if you have those 3 things, then here's where most of our challenges come from. Here's where most of our frustrations come from. Here's where most of our lack of satisfaction in life comes from, is that we have this massive desire to make a contribution, but the infrastructure that we have around us falls short. Because I know that if you're like me and you have the right infrastructure, if you have confidence in what you're doing, you will stand on the accelerator pedal. Would you agree, Mike?
Sure.
But if we don't have the infrastructure, this is where we end up in this like almost lifelong argument with ourselves that we want to do so more, but we aren't building the systems to get there.
So how do we go about that?
So here's what's crucial, Mike. And I think this is one of the challenges that I think most entrepreneurs don't ever sit down and really look at, is that if we don't know where we're going, if we're not clear on what we want, if we're not clear on what our next interim step is, it makes it very hard for us to create momentum. People like us, we are driven by momentum. So here's three things that it takes for an entrepreneur to get into a period of momentum and stay there. The first thing is a clear outcome. That means you know what you're doing next. That doesn't mean you're going to go help a billion people. That's not a clear outcome. I mean, unless you've already helped like 900 million, that's not a clear outcome if you're starting from zero. A clear outcome is we're going to launch this product that makes X number of dollars. We're going to do this next step in the process. We're going to move through this next project. The second part is that there's clear accountability. Like you know what you're doing and you know what other people are doing for you. And then the third part is you're measuring your way towards success. And if you do those three things, you clarify your outcome, you understand who's doing what, and you're making a contribution together and you're measuring your way forward. If you go back through your life history and you think of every period you remember as momentum, those three things will be there. A clear outcome that you were counting down to, an understanding of what you were doing and what the people around you were doing and who was helping who and who was making a contribution to who. And then the third one is that scoreboard, that way of measuring forward. And Mike, when we put those things in place, that's when we start building the infrastructure around us because we have clarity.
So once you've got those in place, right, I think most people can sit down and they can put together the plan, right? They can set the goal. They can have that vision. From an execution standpoint, what needs to take place?
So I'm going to go with the step one. Here's one of the things that I do with every entrepreneur I work with first. Before we start saying, what are we going to do? We start saying, what are we going to leave behind? And in my language, here's how I look at it, is that as entrepreneurs, as entrepreneurial personality types, just the very fact that we are the subpopulation among humanity that is driven to change things, to move forward, that creates vulnerability for ourselves, creates pressure and noise. We experience far more pressure and noise than most. And so the first step that I take with any entrepreneur who we are going to help them scale a business, grow a business, move in the right direction, is we start examining, like, where is their pressure and noise right now? What are the things in your life that you're doing over and over again and you're not getting a result? Where are the places that you may have gotten yourself into a loop or a spiral where you're not actually moving forward? You're just doing something for the sake of doing it. And we start pulling away anything that we can, Mike, because for people like us, there's two ways to create momentum. You can create a clear outcome. You can find, like I just said, create a clear outcome, clear accountability, clear measurement forward, and you're going to be in momentum. Or today, right now, you can decide to drop the crap in your life that isn't giving you forward momentum, and it will automatically happen. It's just physics. Like the more operational drag you drop, the more momentum you have. And every one of us has an opportunity every day to say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to examine the people, the places, the things that I'm doing over and over again. And I'm going to go by this rule. If it's not giving me momentum, it's taking it away. And when we take people through our frameworks and our structures so that they discover these things and they move them out of their lives, they get rid of them, they replace them with better habits, better behaviors. Mike, it's insane how quickly people's success starts happening. It's like multiplication through subtraction.
Well, let's dive into some specifics around that, right? I know this is a topic that you're insanely passionate about and that you utilize every single day. So what are some of the specific ways that we can go down that road?
So, Mike, this is going to sound crazy because, and some of my clients, and I have talked, I coach, people who are running multi-million-dollar organizations. I work with some of the most successful people in the world. The place that I start with everyone is with hydration. How much water are you drinking? And how much water are you drinking on a daily basis? And how often? And what kind of bottle do you carry? And, are you making sure you're hydrated? Here's why. We're evolutionary.
By hydration and water, do you mean caffeine?
No,
because I treat caffeine as water.
Yeah, I get that answer all the time. Well, I drink about 1.5 pots of coffee. Well, since it's a diuretic, it works backwards. But yeah, and it's interesting. I've got a program that we put out just because so many of our clients have used it. It's at getthirstynow.com, and it's a hydration program. But by just getting people hydrated, it lowers pressure and noise in the body so much. It reconnects mind and body. It makes us pay attention to what we're doing more. It makes us more aware. Every hour or so, we have to get up and go use the restroom, which keeps us from sitting longer than we're supposed to, according to every bit of science you can find on sitting. You should be getting up once an hour anyway. And when you do get fully hydrated, here's what's interesting. The top 20 drugs in the United States treat the symptoms of various diseases, but if you back them down, they also treat the symptoms of dehydration, like brain fog, frustration, stomach issues, pain, inflammation. Every single one of them treats a symptom that can be caused by dehydration. 75% of the population walks around dehydrated. And here's my argument. Let them. Because evolutionary hunters, people like us, we are physiologically sensitive, momentum-based beings. We feel momentum. We feel the where to go next. We don't just intellectualize it. Mike, would you agree?
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And from a specific standpoint, right? Because I don't want to just do lip service of, hey, make sure you're hydrated, because that gets overlooked a lot, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about that from my own context. And what does that mean? What does it mean to be really well hydrated? And I would have to have some kind of tool to track or measure what's actually taking place. To one, keep that at the top of my conscious level. Two, to help me follow through to see if I'm actually executing on my goal around that. And so I know there's a couple of devices that actually do that these days that are literally like Bluetooth wired water bottles that will help you track that. Have you played around with those at all? Or how do you track essentially what you're putting into your body on a daily basis?
You got it, Mike. So I have played with the Bluetooth bottles. I mean, I've used almost every water bottle on the market because I'm obsessed with this. And here's the issue. They're all too small. Let me give you the top level explanation of how you reawaken your natural thirst. So here's not theory. This is fact. Thirst is a subtle instinct. Here's how we know that. I'm going to use Mike as the example. You can get up in the morning or Mike, have you ever gotten up in the morning and thought to yourself, I'm kind of thirsty? And then somewhere around 3 or 4 in the afternoon, you think to yourself, have I had any water today at all?
Again, what I've had this morning so far is 2 bottles of unsweetened organic green tea. So
no water.
Well, there's it's 99% water, right? But it's also got caffeine in it. So
well, here's what can happen. I've watched this. Like, I'm sure you've experienced a day where you drank nothing for a few hours.
Usually the case.
Okay, so here's why. The thirst instinct is a very subtle instinct. Like, we can suppress it quickly. Your body says, hey, drink water. You suppress it. Now, evolutionary man, if the body said drink water and water was nearby, you think that person's going to go drink a ton of water because they'd probably been without it. And if you look at every other species on the planet, human beings are the only species that have learned how to sip, how to drink less than a full load of water, and how to do anything other than hyperhydrating. So what we need to do is reawaken our natural instinct to drink as much water as we should, which is going to shock you because most people, once they do what I'm going to help you guys with here, they start drinking 300 to 400 ounces of water a day. And that's men. I've had women above 300, but a lot between 200 and 300. And here's how you do this. And I know that sounds insane, but here's step 1. Tomorrow morning when you get up, there's three major steps to this. First, tomorrow morning when you get up, drink 16 ounces or more of water all at once. It's called hyperhydration. You take on 16 ounces or more of water, here's what happens. Your metabolism is boosted 30 to 50% for up to 2 hours. Your entire circulatory system will flush. Your lymphatic system will flush. Water is the only mechanism to remove toxicity from the body. So when you get up in the morning, you take on that water, your body purges toxicity in a way that it normally wouldn't because now it has a vehicle to purge too. And that hyperhydration will awaken the thirst instinct, let your body know that you're in an area of abundance, and it will continue to drink. It will continue to remind you to drink. You'll be shocked at how thirsty you are within 20 minutes of drinking the 16 ounces or more. So that's step 1, Mike. Hyperhydration in the morning.
Okay.
Step two is proximity to water. If we don't have water with us, this is a simple equation. If we don't have water with us, we won't drink it. And what we want to do is start satisfying the natural thirst instinct every time it subtly prompts us. So what I recommend people do is you buy 50-ounce bottles or at least 32-ounce bottles and grab one or two of them, fill them up and have them with you. And I have two 50-ounce SIG bottles. I fill them in the morning. That's 100 ounces. Those are usually done by about 8:30 or 9 because I work out and have a sauna session and stuff in the morning. But I just count up how many I do every day. And for me, it's somewhere between 7 and 8 or 9. And having the water with you allows you to hyperhydrate when you feel thirsty. So we need to start reminding our body how we take on water. So drink 16 ounces or more. There's times where I might, swallow 6 or 7 times when I'm drinking. That lets me know I'm around 20 ounces. There's times I might swallow 10 or 11 times, which lets me know I'm around 30, maybe 35 ounces, and all in one shot. And when you start doing this, it's amazing how the body changes. Everybody says, for a period of time you do, your body has to find stasis. But within as little as 3 to 7 days, you'll find that it's not happening anymore. Within as little as 3 to 7 days, you'll start drinking over 200 ounces of water. Within as little as 3 to 7 days, you'll have this breakthrough moment where it's like, man, I didn't know I could be this clear when you're finally hydrated.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. Something I definitely need to do.
Mike, last step. Here's the rule. If you think, drink. If you so much as look at your water bottle, that is your body subtly prompting you to drink. And you just need to remind yourself, hey, I should drink. Because here's what's happened. We no longer are out in the wild, walking around, walking by streams, walking by water where we could drink whenever we wanted. We are in a high noise environment where there's always a distraction, where we can become distracted and disconnected from our natural instincts. So when we look at our water bottle, that's a prompt to say, okay, let's drink. And it is absolutely life-changing. Mike, if you get a boost of 30 to 50% on your metabolism every time you drink 16 ounces of water, if you stay hyperhydrated all day, it's literally like working out without even trying to work out.
Right. Absolutely. Very cool. I dig it. Something I need to start doing today.
I didn't mean to expose the caffeine addiction, Mike. Sorry about that, brother.
So we've got that down. That's a really good starting foundational piece. What would you stack on top of that?
A morning routine. And I know this sounds like, oh gosh, another person who's going to talk about a morning routine. But let me take you a little deeper into morning routines and why I obsess over them. So first, I'm one of those weird people who takes on a lot of data. I read a lot of books. I'm obsessed with life histories of successful people. I've read thousands of them. I've studied the journals, the manuals, the third-party accounts, the articles, whatever I could to understand how people like us have calmed the voices, checked in, and changed the world. And one of the most common things you see is an obsession with routine to the point of making other people uncomfortable. And because I saw this continual obsession with routine, I started really studying it and understanding why and wanting to know, why was it that Einstein insisted on wearing the same thing every day? And so did Steve Jobs, and so did Mark Zuckerberg. Why is it that wealthy people want to do the same exact thing every single time? Why do they get into this pattern where they start, obsessing over routine? And why is it that successful people throughout history have done this? And it's easy. We experience more pressure and noise than most people. And if you can create a morning routine where you do what you should do in the first hour of the day, most of us will get more done in the first hour of the day than most people do all day. Because you can get up, you can hyperhydrate, you can plan the day, understand with intention how you're moving forward, and then put on a checklist the things that you should do each day. Mike, I get down to granular detail, like wake up, wash out my mouth, hyperhydrate, make sure I take my supplements, sit down, do my meditation, and so that I have everything that I know helps me show up at 100% each day. And here's the challenge for so many entrepreneurs. When you get up and you hit the ground running, we put our body in fight or flight mode. When there's not a routine, when there's not a process we go through to prepare for the game, which for the rest of the world is every once in a while, for us, it's every freaking day. And just like an athlete who putts the same way, just like a kicker who goes through the same routine, every day is game day for us. And when we get up and we go through a routine where we don't have to think about what to do next. We free our mind to do what it is we were put here on the planet to do, create a better future, and then insist it becomes real. And almost every entrepreneur I've ever worked with, in the back of their mind, thinks, a checklist in the morning? Come on, how serious can he be? And with every entrepreneur I've worked with that has achieved over 8 figures, there's a checklist in the morning there.
So what is yours?
Mine's obsessive, Mike. I could pull it up and read it to you, but let me give.
Well, then let's do the highlight reel, right? Like
for me, here's what I think you should include in your morning routine. So first, hyperhydration and making sure that you're taking on the water. Then in the morning, some type of a breathing or meditation exercise. And guys, this can be as short as like using the Muse headband for 3 minutes, or doing a 3-minute, like sitting quietly, breathing in and out through your nose and trying to extend your breaths as long as possible. It does not have to be I connected to the higher power, higher universe and saw, the future meditation. It's just letting the body know that we're not in a fight or flight situation. So that's hydration, meditation. Then the third big one, this one's massive. 100% of my private clients do this. It's getting up, getting outside, and walking for at least 20 minutes while you breathe in and out through your nose. Now, I know that sounds like the lamest workout in history for most people. And if anybody saw me, you wouldn't assume that what I do first thing in the morning is walk. Like I lift weights. I stay in as optimal shape as I possibly can so that I can execute at a very high level. But here's what happens. When you get up and you do the 20-minute walk, it kicks your body out of a fight or flight mode and into a dopamine loop. It actually releases dopamine. You'll get a runner's high from walking 20 minutes in the morning, especially if you're willing to do it barefoot, because you connect mind and body more. And we're evolutionary hunters. We're meant to get up and move. And when we move in this way, we walk, we breathe in and out through our nose, we let our body know in a kinesthetic moving way that we are not in fight or flight. This will calm you, increase awareness, and make you more present throughout the day. And then the fourth big one for me that I think in your morning routine, the hydration, the meditation, getting outside and moving, and then nutrition. We are evolutionary hunters. And if you're not treating yourself like a professional athlete, I ask why. You have the earning potential of a professional athlete. You have the influence potential of a professional athlete. So have a defendable diet that you understand. Get rid of artificial colors, flavors, chemicals, anything. Eat whole foods. Give yourself the absolute best fuel you can, because it's the fuel through which you're creating the future. It's the fuel through which you're creating your wealth. It's the fuel through which you're creating your greatest outcomes in the world and your greatest contribution. There's a reason why Jeff Bezos looks like a linebacker. He's working out every single day and making sure that he's treating himself like a professional athlete. So for me, Mike, those are the big things: is get up and hyperhydrate. Do some breathing or meditation to let your body know you're not in a panic. Get outside and walk and reinforce that. Then punch in the dopamine loop. It will blow you away how quickly it happens. Take your shoes off if you're really into it. And I would recommend all of you do that. And then last, take on the highest quality nutrition you can first thing in the morning so that your body knows it can go all out.
So I want to hit on that real quick, because this is such an interesting topic these days. We've had on Dave Asprey. We've had on, oh gosh, I'm going to forget his name right now. The author of How Not to Die.
Oh, I know. I can't remember.
A huge doctor, and he's a vegetarian, right? His whole philosophy is based around vegetarian and reducing inflammation from animal products, right? So I have one of my best friends here in town who's super paleo. He's in fantastic shape. He has, almost no body fat, no inflammation, and he works out 2 or 3 times a week max, and he's in much better shape than I am. And he's super strict paleo, eats tons of high quality protein. And so I don't know which philosophy to follow or which one is better for my particular, body, and how to determine that, because I'm always torn between going one way or the other. And I haven't found the zone that works best for me yet. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there who are listening to this who probably feel the same.
Oh, no question, Mike. Gosh, this makes me so excited, because the new product that you and I were just talking about and before we went live has this in it. And here's what I would recommend, Mike. And it's not fun. It's not easy, and it's kind of a pain in the ass to do this, but you can set yourself up for years to have the absolute optimal nutrition for you. And the way that you do it is you start an elimination diet. You go down to very few foods for a period of time where you allow your body to purge toxicity, to get rid of any allergens, to stop reacting to anything. And then you introduce foods one at a time so that you can see what your body's reaction to it is, how you feel, how your mental clarity is. And what happens is through going through an elimination diet, each human being can set up the absolute optimal diet for them. And, I've done this. And for everybody listening, I've been strict vegan, vegetarian, raw vegan, strict paleo, epipaleo. Like I've tried almost everything out there. But what I've found is this: if you look at the latest research, our bodies, our gut biome changes over time. You can go your entire life eating strawberries and then eat them one day, break out in a rash, and not understand that it was the strawberries, and you just cross some type of a line where you're now reactive to whatever's in the strawberries. And so if you go through an elimination diet and like I said, it's not fun, but here's what's interesting. I did it. It was hard. I want to just walk to the cupboard and eat whatever I wanted. But there was so much momentum in like trying bread and having my body react like crazy and thinking, oh man, this is so easy. Like all I have to do is never do that again. And, as I went through foods, it was so clear what I should and shouldn't be eating that it made it very easy to move forward. And I know any one of us can do that. And you can literally Google, how do you do an elimination diet? And there's so many people doing it now. You can download a PDF from just about anyone you want. Here locally in town, Amy Myer's book is pretty good on how to do that. The Whole30 is one of the best elimination diets you can do. It doesn't really show you how to add the foods back. But that's the easiest way to do it, Mike. And then you custom tailor your diet for yourself. And here's what happens with every entrepreneur I've walked through this. The amount of complaining and frustration at the beginning is never equivalent to the amount of clarity and momentum at the end. So I want all of you to know, like, this is one of those places where you have to white knuckle just a little bit, which I hate that term, white knuckle. I never want to do that. I want to show people how to get momentum in the process. And the way that you do with an elimination diet is you think to yourself, you are custom creating a diet that's going to be completely defendable for you. So when somebody says, hey, why do you eat meat? You can say, I did this thing called an elimination diet. And the day that I ate this, I felt great.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. I'm like, oh, because it is hard. It is definitely hard, especially when you've got a routine, right? Like I've had my diet routine for years now that I do pretty much the same thing every morning. So breaking out of that's always tough. But I've seen the change. I've seen the difference, right? I see the difference between people who are keyed in and who are on a diet that is optimal for them. And I've seen it in my life when I can tell that it's not, and I need to make a change, but I just don't know what to do. So this is the process to get through that, obviously.
Yeah. And then here's the other one, Mike, and I'll put this out there for everyone. There's 5, let me start in a different way. We're being manipulated and we're under attack. You don't stand a chance against processed foods. You don't. Right now, in a laboratory, there is a scientist working on the perfect combination of sugar, salt, fat, and chemicals to cause an addictive response in your mouth and in your neurology. And because of what's been approved for artificial colors, artificial sugars, artificial flavors, the sweeteners, and the additives that companies are allowed to use, they actually use neurotoxins. Sucralose is watered down DDT, which is what we use to kill people in the war. And if you use a lot of it, you die. If you use less of it, you water it down chemically and use part of the molecule, you get a sweet taste on your mouth. Still a neurotoxin. And so any of us that are eating processed foods with colors, processed sugars, artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners, or any type of chemical preservative, we are allowing ourselves to be doped in to addictive behaviors. You know that Lay's potato chips crap? You can't eat just one. That's both a marketing slogan and a scientific fact that they are trying to prove.
Right. Exactly. No, I'm completely in agreement with that. Absolutely. So, Alex, we've got about 5 minutes left here. Let's dive into one last big piece of advice you can share with entrepreneurs that will help them really create momentum in their lives and in their business.
When you made it sound so important that I froze up. Mike, I think here's the most important piece of advice for people like us. You should obsessively lower pressure and noise every day. It's interesting. I could hear, and Mike and I are close friends, so I'll let everybody in on the secret. I know Mike really well. But you can hear in the language, like, I eat the same thing every day. Well, I know why, because you don't want to make that decision because it's pressure and noise, right? And for all of us, we experience more pressure and noise than most. And so each day, think to yourself, how do I make this easier on myself? How do I make this have more momentum? How do I stop feeling the operational drag of everything that's holding me back? Because here's what happens to people like us. We have this memory in our lives of not having enough resources, not having enough time, not having the right people around us, not even really having like what it takes. But then that is exactly where, in fact, we checked in, tuned in, pushed as hard as we possibly could, and created who we are today. Mike, would you agree?
Yeah, without a doubt.
And so for people like us, we get programmed to, we get conditioned to accept pressure and noise. And I've spent time around some of the most successful people in the world, and the obsession that they have on a daily basis is, how do I lower pressure and noise in my life? How do I eliminate pressure and noise in my life? It used to be like weird when somebody had a hyperbaric chamber in their house. Now they have a hyperbaric chamber and a cryo chamber and a float tank and all these other things, and it's not even weird anymore. Why? Because people who have figured things out obsess over making things easier for themselves. And when you look at the average entrepreneur today, the average person like us, they appear to be in a competition to see who can handle more pressure and noise.
We're athletes.
Right.
You have to be. If you want to actually get stuff done and be competitive, you have to be.
Yeah. And so my big piece of advice is be ruthless when it comes to eliminating pressure and noise.
Awesome, brother. Well, this is obviously a big area of specialty in your world, and it really is kind of the physical foundation that will allow you to then go execute your business, at a different level. But where can people go plug into you and your work? I know you've got a brand new podcast that's been doing awesome, but where can people go plug in?
So we have the podcast, which is the Entrepreneurial Personality Type podcast. And you can just go to Entrepreneurial Personality Type podcast. Took forever to type. So go to Momentum Podcast, and we have Google, Stitcher, and all the formats there, wherever you need, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. So all three formats. And then the second place is, if you'd like to know more about the entrepreneurial personality type and understand more about yourself and how you can create momentum, go to freemomentumbook.com. So free momentum book, and download the entrepreneurial personality type.
Awesome, brother. Well, this has been another fantastic call. I always enjoy our conversations and walk away from each of these feeling really well understood, which is rare. You're really the only person talking about this. And yet once you hear it as an entrepreneur, you're like, oh, wow, this is really important, so it's been awesome.
Well, thanks, Mike. And, I just want to thank you, man. I'm not just friends with Mike. I want everyone to know, like, I use Mike's stuff. We bought ListGrow. We've been friends for a while, but a lot of that comes from the respect that I have for what you do, how you put it out there, and how many people you're helping. And for anyone who's listening, not a week goes by that I don't have, 5 or 6 people, maybe more, mention Mike Dillard in a conversation when they're telling me about how they started their business, became successful, and did what they want to do. So you're listening to the right guy here. He's got all the credibility in the world, and I know he's given my wife and I more momentum than just about anybody out there.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Awesome. Well, Alex, it's been a pleasure, brother. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. Hopefully it'll be at the track. And this has been great. So guys, go plug into Alex's work. He's phenomenal. And the podcast as well. I've absolutely loved listening to the first few episodes, and I left a review. So thank you for putting that out there. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening as always. Take care.